There is a pool in Jerusalem that nobody believed existed. For almost 2,000 years, scholars and skeptics pointed to the 5th chapter of John and said the same thing, that no such place had ever been found, that no archaeological record confirmed 5 porticos around a healing pool near the sheep gate, that John had invented a detail to make his story more vivid. For almost 2,000 years, they were wrong. In the 19th century, excavators digging beneath the streets of Jerusalem's Muslim quarter found it. Exactly where John said it was. Exactly the layout John described. 5 covered colonnades, stone steps descending into the water. The pool of Bethesda, real, verified, standing beneath the city like a rebuttal to every commentator who had called it myth. That matters. Because everything that happens at this pool is about to matter enormously. It is a feast day in Jerusalem. The city is crowded. Pilgrims are moving through the streets toward the temple. And Jesus, without his disciples mentioned, without a crowd following him, without an audience recorded, walks to this pool. Alone. As if he already knows what he is looking for. What he finds is a place of desperation. The pool is surrounded by the sick, the blind, the lame, people with withered limbs with bodies that have not worked the way a body is supposed to work, lying on mats and cloaks and whatever they could find to put between themselves and the stone. They are waiting for the water to move. There is a tradition, John records it, that when the water stirs, an angel has touched it, and the first person into the pool will be healed. Whether or not that is literally true, these people believe it. They have organized their entire lives around being first. And among all of them, one man. He has been here, at this pool, in this condition, for 38 years. Let that number sit for a moment. 38 years. If he became ill at 20, he is now nearly 60. He has watched other people healed. He has watched seasons change from a mat on the ground. He has developed an entire philosophy of suffering, an entire explanation for why he is still here. And you will hear that explanation in about 30 seconds, because Jesus is about to ask him a question. A question that the first time you read it sounds almost cruel. Jesus looks at this man. He learns, somehow, from someone, or simply by knowing, that the man has been in this condition for a very long time. And then he asks him something that no one at this pool has apparently ever asked him. Do you want to get well? Not, can I help you? Not, have you tried the water? Not, what happened to you? The question cuts straight past logistics and straight past history and goes somewhere deeper, somewhere the man was apparently not prepared to go. Before this story ends, Jesus will say something to this man that is more frightening than 38 years on that mat. We will get there. But first, you need to see what the man says next, because his answer will tell you everything. This is not a healing story. This is not a miracle story. This is not even a story about a pool. This is a story about the most dangerous moment in any person's life. The moment after God shows up and asks you a question you are not sure you want to answer. The man's answer is not, yes. That is the first thing you need to understand. Jesus asks him directly, personally, looking straight at him, do you want to get well? And the man does not say yes. He says, Sir, I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. While I am trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me. It is a logistical complaint, a rehearsed one, if you listen carefully. The kind of answer a person gives when they have explained their situation so many times that the explanation has become the situation. He is not describing a desire. He is describing an obstacle. And underneath the obstacle, if you listen even more carefully, is a question that was never asked out loud. Why would you ask me that? Why would you ask me if I want something I have spent 38 years failing to get? Stay with me because the number matters. In the 2nd chapter of Deuteronomy, verse 14, Moses is recounting Israel's wilderness journey to a new generation standing at the edge of the Promised Land. And he says this, 38 years passed from the time we left Kadesh Barnea until we crossed the Zered Valley. 38 years, the exact length of Israel's punishment after they refused to trust God at the border of the land he had promised them. A generation that received deliverance from Egypt, watched the Red Sea part, ate bread that fell from the sky, and still would not take the next step when it cost them something. John's Jewish audience would have heard this number and felt it in their chest. Augustine of Hippo, writing his tractates on the Gospel of John in the early 5th century, noticed something else in that number. He pointed out that 40 is the number of testing in Scripture. 40 days of Moses on the mountain, 40 days of Jesus in the wilderness, 40 years of Israel wandering. 40 is the full measure of proving, and 38 is 40 minus 2. Augustine argued that those 2 missing years represent the 2 great commandments, love God, love your neighbor, that the law could name but could not produce in a human heart. The man at the pool, Augustine wrote, has been living in that deficit. He has the law, he has the tradition, he has been lying next to the water his whole life, and he is still 38 years short of whole dot. The Greek word John uses for well in Jesus's question is hygeus. It means whole, complete, fully functional in the way a thing was designed to function. It is a word that carries more than physical meaning. When Jesus asks, "Do you want to become hygeus?" he is asking something bigger than, "Do you want to walk?" He is asking, "Do you want to be what you were made to be?" And now here is what most people miss. Josephus, the Jewish historian writing in the 1st century, references the area around the Sheep Gate in Jerusalem as a known landmark. For centuries after John wrote his Gospel, skeptics argued the Pool of Bethesda was invented. No 5-porticoed pool, no archaeological record, no corroboration. Then, in 1888, excavators found it, exactly where John placed it, exactly the structure John described. 5 porticos, 2 basins, stone steps. The Bible had been accurate the entire time. The critics had simply not dug deep enough. There is a lesson in that, and we will come back to it. Jesus does not wait for the man to revise his answer. He does not explain what he is about to do. He does not ask permission or take the man's hand or make a ceremony of it. He gives 3 commands in rapid succession. Get up, pick up your mat, walk. And the man, this man who has not stood on his own legs in 38 years, does exactly that. The text says it plainly. At once, the man was cured. He picked up his mat and walked. At once. Not gradually. Not with physical therapy and weeks of rebuilding. At once. 38 years erased between one sentence and the next. Now here is where you might expect the story to end. Man healed. Crowd cheers. Jesus glorified. Everybody goes home with something to tell their children. But it is the Sabbath. And the Jewish religious leaders, who are not at the pool celebrating what just happened, but are watching the streets, see a man carrying a mat, and in their world, carrying a mat on the Sabbath is a violation of the law. Not the law of Moses exactly, but the rabbinical interpretations that had been built around it like walls around a wall. 39 categories of prohibited labor. Carrying an object from one domain to another, prohibited. They stopped the man. Not to ask how he was healed, not to verify the miracle, not to find the healer. They stop him because of what is under his arm. The man tells them, "The one who healed me told me to carry it." They ask, "Who told you to pick it up and walk?" And here is where the story takes a turn that John records without comment, without explanation, without a single word of editorial guidance. The man does not know. He cannot name the person who just ended 38 years of suffering. Jesus had slipped away into the crowd before the man could ask. The man who received the most significant moment of his entire life does not even know the name of the one who gave it to him. He would find out. But how he used that information, that is the part of this story that will stay with you. So let's pause here for just a moment. A man who spent 38 years unable to walk is now standing in the streets of Jerusalem, carrying the mat he used to lie on. The religious leaders who should be celebrating are prosecuting him for the mat. And the one who healed him has disappeared into a crowd of thousands. You might be thinking, this is already different from every sermon I have heard about this passage. You are right, because most teaching on John chapter 5 stops at verse 9. The man walks. The crowd marvels. The chapter moves on. But the story does not stop at verse 9. It keeps going. And where it goes is the part that changes everything about how you read this miracle. If you are finding this valuable, if this is the kind of deep look at Scripture that you want more of, take 5 seconds right now and subscribe. Every week we go beneath the surface of passages you thought you knew, and what we find down there is almost always more astonishing than what is on top. Because what happens next in John chapter 5 is the part nobody preaches. It is the part that reframes the entire miracle. It is the part where Jesus tracks this man down, not by accident, not by coincidence, and says something to him that is, depending on how you read it, either the most pastoral thing ever spoken or the most sobering warning in the entire Gospel of John? We are going there right now. The Greek word in John 5 verse 14 is heurisko. It means found. But not the way you find your keys on the kitchen counter, not passive discovery. Heurisko carries the sense of active, intentional seeking, the kind of finding that only happens because someone went looking. It is the same word used in Luke 15 when the shepherd finds the lost sheep. When the woman finds the lost coin, you search, you locate, you find. Jesus found him. In a city swollen with festival pilgrims, in Jerusalem during a feast, when the population of the city multiplied many times over, with people coming from every direction, among hundreds of thousands of faces moving through narrow stone streets toward the Temple Mount, Jesus, who had slipped away from the pool without giving his name, without receiving thanks, without any recorded acknowledgement from the man at all, went looking for him, and found him in the temple. Think about what that means. The man who spent 38 years unable to walk has walked to the temple. Whatever else you want to say about him, he went to the right place first. He went to the house of God on the day God gave him his legs back. There is something in that worth noting, even if what comes next complicates the picture considerably. Jesus steps in front of him, and what he says is not what you would expect from a healer reuniting with someone he has just cured. There is no, "How do you feel?" There is no celebration. There is no record of an embrace. Jesus looks at the man and says, and these are the exact words John records, "See, you are well again. Stop sinning, or something worse may happen to you." That word well, haigis, is the same word Jesus used at the pool when he asked, "Do you want to become whole?" He is closing a loop deliberately. You are haigis now. You have what you asked for, or rather, what I gave you before you even asked properly. And now I need to tell you something about what comes next. Stop sinning. Here is where the Greek does something that English almost completely flattens. The command is meketi hamartane. The word hamartano is a present imperative, which in Greek grammar means an ongoing action being commanded to stop. It is not, do not commit a sin in the future. It is not a warning about a hypothetical. The present imperative construction means, you are currently doing something, and you need to stop doing it. Continuously, as a pattern, as a way of life. Jesus is not predicting, he is diagnosing. He is looking at this man he just healed, this man standing in the temple on legs that should not work, and telling him that there is something in his life that has not changed, something ongoing, something that, if it continues, will produce consequences worse than 38 years on a mat. And this is where it gets remarkable, because the early church understood this exactly the way the Greek demands. The Didache, one of the earliest Christian texts outside the New Testament, written somewhere around AD 90 to 120, uses hamartano in the same continuous action sense in chapter 4. The instruction is not, avoid sin as a category. It is, do not continue in a pattern of sin. The first generation of Christians, many of whom were trained by the apostles directly, read the command to sin no more as a command about lifestyle, not about isolated moments. Augustine saw it too. In his tractates on the Gospel of John, he connects the 38 years not just to Israel's wilderness wandering, but to the deeper problem of a life organized around what cannot save it. The man had a system, he had a pool, he had a theology of healing that required someone else to carry him, required the water to move at just the right moment, required circumstances to align in a way they had not aligned in nearly 4 decades. And even after Jesus destroyed that entire system in 3 words, the man's first recorded action after learning his healer's name, his very first move, is to walk back to the people who were prosecuting him for carrying a mat and tell them it was Jesus who told him to do it. John 5, verse 15. The man went away and told the Jewish leaders that it was Jesus who had made him well. John does not call this a betrayal. John does not editorialize at all. He simply records what the man did. And what follows in verse 16 is, so, because Jesus was doing these things on the Sabbath, the Jewish leaders began to persecute him. The healed man's report is the beginning of the organized persecution of Jesus in the Gospel of John. Was it innocent? Was the man simply following the instruction to tell people what had happened to him? Was he so steeped in religious culture that reporting to the authorities felt like the right and obedient thing to do? Or was there something else? Fear of the leaders who had already confronted him, a desire to deflect attention, a need to explain himself by explaining Jesus. The text does not say, and that silence is the point. John wants you to sit with the discomfort of not knowing. What you do know is this: the man received the most significant gift of his entire life, and within a very short time, he had used it in a way that put the giver in danger. This is not a story about a bad person. Most of the people who wound and disappoint Jesus in the Gospels are not bad people. They are people who were healed but not yet changed. People who received what God had for them without yet understanding what God wanted from them. People who walked out of their miracle and back into their patterns. Hold that thought, because Jesus is about to make clear, with one Greek adjective, exactly what is at stake. The Greek adjective is hieron. It appears once in John 5 verse 14, tucked inside the warning Jesus delivers in the temple. Most English translations render it simply as worse. Something worse may happen to you. And if you read it quickly, if you are moving through the passage the way most people move through familiar scripture, you might absorb it as a general caution, a soft warning, the kind of thing a doctor says when he tells you to watch your diet. It is not a soft warning. Hieron is a comparative adjective. It means worse in the most precise, calibrated sense, not different, not unpleasant, not difficult, worse, as in measurably, categorically, in every conceivable dimension more severe than the thing you are comparing it to. Jesus is not reaching for a vague future consequence. He is pointing at something specific. He is pointing at 38 years of paralysis, which this man has lived, which this man knows in his bones, and saying, what I am warning you about is worse than that. Because Jesus is about to make clear, with one Greek adjective, exactly what is at stake. The Greek adjective is hieron. It appears once in John 5 verse 14, tucked inside the warning Jesus delivers in the temple. Most English translations render it simply as worse. Something worse may happen to you. And if you read it quickly, if you are moving through the passage the way most people move through familiar scripture, you might absorb it as a general caution, a soft warning, the kind of thing a doctor says when he tells you to watch your diet. It is not a soft warning. Hieron is a comparative adjective. It means worse in the most precise, calibrated sense, not different, not unpleasant, not difficult, worse, as in measurably, categorically, in every conceivable dimension more severe than the thing you are comparing it to. Jesus is not reaching for a vague future consequence. He is pointing at something specific. He is pointing at 38 years of paralysis, which this man has lived, which this man knows in his bones, and saying, what I am warning you about is worse than that. Worse than 38 years on a mat at the edge of a pool. Worse than watching other people healed while you waited. Worse than a body that would not do what a body is supposed to do. Worse than losing decades of your life to a condition you did not choose. Worse than all of it. This is the moment we planted at the beginning. The thing more frightening than 38 years on that stone. Here it is. And notice what it is not. It is not a punishment delivered in anger. There is no record of Jesus raising his voice. There is no condemnation, no withdrawal of the healing, no taking it back. The healing stands. The man is still hygeus, still whole, even as Jesus speaks these words. This is not a threat. It is a warning from someone who just proved, beyond any possible doubt, that he has the authority and the power to make good on both the gift and the consequence. That is what makes it sobering. Not that Jesus might harm him, but that Jesus clearly loves him, has pursued him across a festival city to find him, has initiated this entire encounter at a pool where no one asked him to come, has healed him without requiring faith or gratitude or even a correct answer to the question, and is now standing in front of him in the temple with something urgent to say. When someone who loves you that much tells you something worse is coming if you do not change course, you listen differently than you listen to anyone else. Now here is the part that is meant for you. You may not have spent 38 years paralyzed at a pool, but you know what it is to have a pattern that has lasted too long. You know what it is to have an explanation ready, rehearsed, logical, airtight, for why things have not changed. You know what it is to be lying close enough to the thing that could heal you that you can hear it, can describe it in detail, can point other people toward it, and still not be in it. Not fully, Not yet. And some of you, not all of you, but some, have received a version of what this man received. A healing, a restoration, a marriage that came back from the edge, a body that recovered when the doctors were not sure it would, a relationship rebuilt, a mind that found its way back from a very dark place, a moment when something that should have ended did not end, and you walked away knowing something had intervened on your behalf. And if you are honest, and this is the place where the text asks you to be honest, some of you walked away from that moment and slowly, quietly, without making a dramatic choice about it, drifted back toward the thing, the pattern, the habit, the relationship that was supposed to be finished, the attitude that was supposed to be surrendered, the version of yourself that the healing was meant to replace. Not because you are a bad person. The man at the pool was not a bad person, but because being healed and being changed are not automatically the same thing. Receiving what God has for you and becoming what God intends for you, those are two different events. And sometimes there is a significant gap between them.